market moves. We sold off more than most of the international equity markets today.
No, I think we have to factor it in because I think we're worried that the Fed's not factoring it in. I just listened to my old friend Barbara Duran. Barbara, you are always as good as ever, and I agree with you. The fear that you mentioned about is so palpable that on any bad news, there's panic. Any bad news. And there are the same stories keep driving stocks down over and over again. That means if you're fighting the Fed and fighting the tape. Look, it's treacherous. It's just bear market activity. No one wants to admit it because we'd like to associate a bear market with some sort of earnings slowdown or some sort of recession, but you don't have one when you have retail sales like that, as Barbara said, service economy. You don't have it when you have full employment. But what you do have is a market where the Fed should have waited to see, and they didn't, and they committed to a course that, in retrospect, it looks a little bit silly.
Jim, Mario Draghi said yesterday that QE could remain part of the ECB toolkit forever. Would you like to hear something as dovish as that from the Fed next week? Do you expect to hear it?
No, all I want to hear is wait. I mean, one of the things that's happened, Wilf, that really drives me crazy is that somehow the idea of patience and waiting to see what the rate hikes did has somehow become rash and somehow become judgmental. In truth, that's prudent. And somehow the Fed confused prudence with rashness. And what you get is J&J down 15. What you get is most of the tech stocks down horribly. You get the materials bear market. We've got so many bear markets going on right now. This is Yellowstone National Park.
So, Jim, are you a buyer on the weakness of a stock like a J&J or a Costco you mentioned this morning, which had pretty decent comps and got sold off, what, 9%?
Well,
or do you have to wait to see what the Fed says?
I think both those are really good examples. I think that the sellers in J&J aren't done because they didn't do any homework and they're just buying entirely into a Reuters story that I'm not buying into, but you have to let the sellers finish. Costco just reported a really good monthly number, so the stock had run in advance. That's the kiss of death, but I thought the Costco number was fine. Get Costco under 200, you start a position. Get J&J under 130, you start a position. Let's say there's $8 billion in possible problems with the talc litigation. They have $20 billion in free cash flow. Barb, I ask you, you've seen markets for a long time. You smell panic. Do you buy panic or do you sell it?
Usually I buy panic, but I'm going to be a little bit more cautious here. I mean, I think you can nibble and buy your favorite names, but I think you have to wait a little bit because I really think we need to see a cessation of volatility here. And we need a few events to happen. But I'm with you, Jim. You usually buy panic.
Right. I agree with you. It's a treacherous market. I didn't mean to talk over you, but it's a treacherous market. You're right, Barb. I certainly wouldn't want to commit a lot of money, but I also think that if you start buying stocks like J&J when they're down another 10% on Monday, I don't think you're going to get hurt that bad. I think that's going to work for you.
Jim, you spoke with Kevin Johnson earlier, and we're looking forward to more of that extended interview later on Mad Money. What did you get from him in terms of how strong or weak the economy is in China? Because they've got such a big presence there, and it was such a big factor for markets to sell off today. Absolutely.
I think that what's happened in China is that the consumer is gifting more than ever. The consumer is buying more than ever. Obviously, their coffee is not inexpensive. The expansion plans in China are very robust. That stock ran up from 52 to 65 ahead of this biennial meeting. Anything that runs up into any news, well, any news, anything that runs up goes and sells off badly. Again, bear market behavior. No one wants to use the word. I'll use the sound.
It does. I mean, it feels that way. It feels like, and we're getting close to those levels, like on financials, which hit bear market territory officially, Jim.
Sarah.
Yeah.
There's Procter & Gamble, and then there's 499 other stocks. Shouldn't there be more than Procter? That's what I ask you. One stock that's good? I mean, just, I know you're from Cincinnati and all, but I mean, honestly.
Jim, the banks closed at their KBW Banks Index closed its lowest level since November 2016.
I have to. That's like watching Black Mirror. Don't mention the banks to me. I don't have this faint of heart, Wilf. I mean, don't put me in that house of pain.
Yeah, well, you know who's buying them. He likes to buy when others are fearful. Is Mr. Buffett. Should other people be taking a leaf out of his book at the moment?
Wilf, he's a multi-billionaire. We have a lot of other people that if they're willing to wait a little bit, I think they'll do fine with some of the banks. But there are so many really good stocks that don't have an inverted yield curve to worry about, and where the numbers are probably too low. I think if you buy below tangible book, you and I both know you're going to make money because banks shouldn't be able to do that. But I've been saying that about Goldman for $20. And I got to tell you, Wilf, I mean, I'm wearing Goldman at this point. It's like a real bad cologne.